You reached another episode of Paid the Cost podcast of Loyalty Above Betrayal. Today's episode is about the Willie Lynch letter. We're speaking about the depiction of the Willie Lynch letter, that happened on the beaches of Virginia in 1712. We're showing the difference of what happened in that letter to what's happening to today. How the depiction is still, that Willie Lynch syndrome is still here. Your host today is Too Smooth and Teflon. So we're gonna get into a little reading of this sucker's information that he gave to the slave owners. So check this out.
You are about to hear the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave, read by Ronald Eastwood. Contents: Chapter 1, Greetings. Chapter 2, Let's Make a Slave. Chapter 3, Cardinal Principles for Making a Negro. Chapter 4, The Breaking Process of the African Woman. Chapter 5, The Negro Marriage Unit. Chapter 6, Controlled Language. This speech was delivered by Willie Lynch on the bank of the James River in the colony of Virginia in 1712. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. He was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his methods to slave owners there. The term lynching is derived from his name. Greetings. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I should thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still have the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human beings along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple of miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you're having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum.
No. Question for you, Too Smooth. Now, did you hear? They said a
profit.
They said as far as how you got the depiction of I was speaking about did you see how they said the hangings and and all that stuff didn't happen that didn't happen pretty much during slavery. The beatings and stuff happened during slavery because guess what? They didn't hang you during slavery because it was kind of like you took away from the economic portion of they hook up for you.
Whatever they had you doing, whatever job they had you on, or whatever they had you doing, it took away from that.
Right. So they really wasn't into like pretty much killing the slave. It was into like controlling the mind. So it wasn't to kill you and hurt you. It was to really control your mind. And that's what these these crackers then that depict it to the point where it's controlled.
Are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problem, I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if you installed it correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take them differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods.
Okay, now here we go now. When we talk about control purposes, envy, fear, and what else? And what else did they say? For control methods.
Control.
Envy, control, and fear. That's what it is. Envy, control, and fear. Now, when we speak about envy, when it goes to slavery, you got to remember this. The quote unquote the house brother. The house brother. What we gonna say the house nigga. The house nigga and the field nigga was two different people. The field nigga envied the house nigga because the house nigga was cool with getting crumbs up crumbs off the table. You know what I'm saying? So he thought he was better. You know what I mean? He was like Massa We. You know what I mean? It wasn't all of, he wasn't even himself. Remember I tell you about the control method? You know what I mean? It's Massa, even if the Massa was sick. You know what I mean? Like Massa, we sick today, Massa. You know what I mean? Massa, we this or Massa, we that. So the control method is, he don't even know who he is. You know what I mean? So that's another syndrome of that Willie Lynch method. You know what I mean? That envy and that control. Right. And when they say they use fear, you know what I mean? That's the point. That's where the whipping came in at. That's where the beating came in at. You know what I mean? So and they did that in front of the women. You know what I mean? They beat the men and humiliated the men in front of the women, so the women could feel that the man wasn't just as strong as he's supposed to be, or as she thought he was. You know what I mean? So once they quote unquote breed the male with the female and the baby come, you know what I mean, they push the male away. You know what I mean? He out there working in the field. You know what I mean? He the field nigga. You know what I mean? So now that woman is dependent on who? The massa, the white man. You know what I mean? So now what's happening today? You know what I mean? You hear women so much and so frequently saying, I don't need no man. I don't need no nigga. I don't need this. I don't need that. You know what I mean? That's what I try to tell you. You know what I mean? In 1712, it's kind of like here, irrelevant today in 2024. Because that's what the women are saying right now. Also, I don't need no man. I don't need no man. I don't need this. I don't need that. You know what I'm saying? So when people think that that's something that's not true, you know what I mean? Why is it so relevant in today's life? You know what I'm saying? And this happened in 1712. We're actually a little bit before that, but he delivered this on the banks of Virginia in 1712. You know what I mean? To the slave owners. You know what I mean?
It's have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about it. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There's intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves.
Now, there we go. Now, what's happening today? What's happening today? As far as what's depicted in this world as far as today, from what he just said right there, Too Smooth.
Yeah, dark skin and light skin going at each other.
Right.
Right
You got,
down to this day, like light skin and dark skin going at each other's throat.
no doubt.
Because of that.
No doubt. You got brother against brother, father against son. You know what I mean? But guess what? You don't hear. You never hear mother against daughter. You know why? Because she put what they put in her that Willie Lynch syndrome. She puts in her daughter. You understand what I'm saying? A woman would teach her daughter everything except how to need a man, because she's gonna raise her to say, hey, you don't need no man. You know what I mean? I'm gonna raise you to, you know what I mean, to be self-sufficient, to be independent. A father gonna tell his daughter that mistakenly and not understanding. You know what I mean? You putting that Willie Lynch syndrome in her to the point where, you know what I mean, when she gonna feel like she ain't gonna need nobody.
She gonna grow up lonely and sad and emotional and all fucked up.
Oh yeah. The Willie Lynch syndrome is kind of like something that's designed. It's a design method. It's not. See, it's designed to do exactly what it's supposed. Exactly what it's doing, to destroy.
Exactly. That's what it's doing. That's why it makes them emotionally messed up.
Right.
Fucked up.
It's a mind manipulator. You know what I'm saying? It manipulates the mind to the point where, you know what I mean, you tell a live vision. That's what, you know what I mean, kind of like TV. You know what I mean? That's why television. You know what I mean? Tell a live vision, because anybody can put anything in front of you. You know what I mean? And disrupt the truth to you. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like what Willie Lynch did. He disrupt the truth. You know what I mean? To people, to make them feel like, you know what I mean, that's how you beat them into submission. You know what I mean? You beat them into submission. You know what I mean? That's where the pimp gets, you know what I mean, his little mind state from. You know what I mean? Bitch, you better get my money. You know what I mean? Bitch, this, you better do that. You know what I mean? That's that syndrome.
You must use the female versus the male and the male versus the female. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kids are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's Make a Slave by the Black Arcade Liberation Library.
Now, here's the chapter where they're talking about making a slave, and I want you guys to sit back and listen to the depiction of, you know what I mean, what they feel the anatomy of a black person is. How they really, looked at us, and how they really used us as economic, fuel, for society. So I want y'all to pay attention to this chapter real close.
It was the interest and business of slaveholders to study human nature, and the slave nature in particular, with a view to practical results. I and many of them attained astonishing proficiency in this direction. They had to deal not with earth, wood, and stone, but with men, and by every regard they had for their own safety and prosperity, they needed to know the material on which they were to work.
Message.
Conscious of the injustice and wrong they were every hour perpetuating, and knowing what they themselves would do. Were they the victims of such wrongs? They were constantly looking for the first signs of the dreaded retribution. They watched, therefore, with skilled and practiced eyes, and learned to read with great accuracy the state of mind and heart of the slave through his sable face. Unusual sobriety, apparent abstractions, sullenness, and indifference, indeed any mood out of the common, was afforded ground for suspicion and inquiry. Frederick Douglass. Let's Make a Slave is a study of the scientific process of man-breaking and slave-making. It describes the rationale and results of the Anglo-Saxons' ideas and methods of ensuring the master-slave relationship, the origin and development of a social being called the Negro. Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse.
Now, they said, making of a slave. We need a nigger boy, a nigger man, a nigger woman, and they need to make a nigger boy. So that's the power of the black man. What they need the black man's power. You know what I mean? You know, because when it comes to separation, you know what I mean. You know, that's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? That's you know, putting the it's putting the male anatomy you know, in direct you know, harm's way, because now they are breeding for economic purposes. So that's what the problem is going to come in at. What you think?
Honestly, with the slave. Okay.
Protected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen, independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. For fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got the nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. Now we can sleep soundly.
Now you understand what I was saying. And they said before the breaking point, they were scared because they knew, you know what I mean, like you said, you know what I mean, we would kill for ours, you know what I mean, we're not going to go for certain things. But then when the breaking point came, they figured, hey, now we can sleep, we're not worried. Because remember key word, they're woke when we're woke, when they're asleep, and we're asleep when they're, you know what I mean, you know, so therefore they always had fear that they can sleep around us. You know what I mean? So, but when the breaking point came, where they broke the woman to the point where, you know what I mean, you know, she raised her son to be, you know, dependent. So as the man grew up, you know what I mean, he gonna figure, yeah, man, I got it, my woman, you know what I mean? He behind her like, you know what I mean, like a puppy dog,
Right.
you know what I mean, scared. So therefore now as she, the man is broken. Now check this out. Now here's how they say they don't mean they're gonna flip this on, from the male to the female.
Out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a unit of good labor force. Continually, through the breaking of uncivilized savage niggers, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing of the protective male image, and by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the nigger male slave,
killing the male
we have
image.
created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. We showed what we mean by example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them closely. The Negro marriage unit. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger male away from them and keep them moving and working.
Now, here's the lowdown bastards, plan, I mean, as far as when I told you, as far as putting some of their blood inside, where they say everybody got a little European in them. Now, here's the trick to, them dirty cowards, this is how they did it when it goes to separation. They, kind of like when, when they put the male out the house, when it was a ADC, or they wouldn't pay her rent, or she couldn't get no help, or, that's when it was 8 for dependent kids, ADC. So then therefore that's when they separated the male and put him out the house, and or told them they won't get no help. So this is the same, message right here, they finna put down right here.
Say one nigger female bears a nigger female, and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females, being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with an independent psychology, will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, and negotiate her at will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen subconscious fear for her life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offspring become fertile for early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, and long-range comprehensive planning. Warning: possible interloping negatives. Earlier, we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in the wild and natural state. We talked out the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then, more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurred and reshifted the positions of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If I can touch some substantial original historical base, they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions, so that...
Now you hear that, right? I don't like to really touch this like that, but remember how they say, take the phenomenon and put a whole bunch of illusions in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now when we talk about the Bible, God forgive me if I'm wrong, when we read the Bible says he has skin of bronze. I mean, skin of bronze and hair of wool. But when we look at that picture, that's not what we're looking at.
We're looking at a white man with blue eyes and brown hair.
I'll say so. Now you understand what he was saying. You know, put the fact of an illusion that's there. Put an illusion in your mind. You know what I mean? Because it's all mind control. You know what I mean? So that's the illusion right there that they figured. You know what I mean? That they say they adapted. You know what I mean? So that's where that comes from.
Each illusion will twirl in its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. This creation of multiplicity of phenomena of illusions entails the principle of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor. The results of which is the severance of the points of original beginnings for each sphere of illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get more complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horses and niggers, we shall lay down the following definition terms for future generations. Orbiting cycle means a thing turning in a given path. Axis means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. Multiplicity means a great number. Sheer means a globe. Crossbreeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is neither reproductive nor productive by itself.
Man, no. Here we go now. Them cowards just, you know what I mean, they depicted the woman as being the horse and the man as being the mule. So you see what they say once the black woman, you know, mate with the black male, they get something that's dumb and fucked up, and it's like as a mule. Now here's the trick to where that shit come at. Now here's where the motherfuckers try to change the whole scenario about what's going on.
Crossbreeding niggers means taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drops by the various tones that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another circle of color appears as you desire. What this means is this.
Now you see what I'm saying? You know, they breed with the woman, and they let the male breed back with her again to put their blood in it. Bottom line, you know what I mean? But remember, it's the illusion. They said if you have two males, a male and a female mate, you know what I mean? It's a donkey. It's a dummy. It's a dumb motherfucker that comes out. So you know what I mean? So why would you want to put some white blood inside these two dumb motherfuckers? That's where they say it makes it superior because you got the white droplets of blood. But no, they also they know that we come from superiority. That's why they want to put that drop of blood in there, because they know you know what I mean, as far as when I was speaking about it earlier about coming from kings and queens, they know our history, they know our royalty, they know our royalty side. You know what I mean? So they want to be part of that royalty side of us, you know what I mean?
Put the niggers and the horse in a breeding pot. Mix some asses and some good white blood. And what do you get? You get a multiplicity of colors of ass backward, unusual niggers, running, tied to a backward ass long-headed mule, the one productive of itself, the other sterile. The one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant For we may replace the mules for another tool, both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, nor without each other. Controlled language. Crossbreeding completed, for further severance from their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. And being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of an incident to the maintenance of the slavery system. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language for the slaves would soon be in your house, talking to you man to man. That is death to our economic system. In addition, the definitions of words or terms are only a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in the society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for those language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war, the degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporating him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he would worry you about provisions to keep the hog pen clean, or take the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something into his language where he comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen. Now you've got a problem. He will soon be in your house. This has been the Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. Copyright 2013 by Snowball Publishing.
Now, too smooth. How do you put 2024 inside this Willie Lynch letter? I mean, where can you see that is relevant, in today's society?
Education in the school system, where they try to make it everything, they bring they whitewash us. And make everything about, everything about them, what I'm saying? It's to make them superior, what I'm saying? I see it in the prison system, what I'm saying? Well, I myself been in the prison system, so, I've seen it firsthand where, they put us out in the field and we out there picking cotton and fruits and vegetables, and, what I'm saying? I also witnessed the way, the white people get the smack on their hand and the black person do, get, the whole thing.
That's called white privilege right there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, the Willie Lynch syndrome is working all kind of ways.
Right. So in other words, when you say, you've seen it in the school system, would it be, fair to say that it's you saying that because they don't teach that in history?
Yeah, they basically don't really teach them about black history like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad because majority of things was made, and you know what I'm saying, were created by black people.
Okay, no. Okay, basically, where would you think that blacks get their black history from?
I mean, you probably have to go, do your own homework, I guess, to find out the real about us. You know what I'm saying? Because white people don't really want you to hear about it.
So it'd be safe to say that would it be safe to say that generationally we will have to talk to our elders?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
So it also would be safe to say that would be the definition of generational wealth then, because wealth is information. And if you're not informed about the information as far as about things like this, how the hater taught hate, you wouldn't be informed on it. So would it be safe to say that information is more important than money?
Oh yeah, definitely, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? With information, you make more money, more money, more money.
Right,
More
right,
information you
right.
find out.
True
You know
story.
what I'm saying? You make more and more and more
True
money.
story. Oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's another episode of Loyalty Above Betrayal. You know what I mean? We're Paid the Cost Podcast. Your boy Teflon and Too Smooth. You know what I mean? We were sitting there talking about the Willie Lynch letter, and how it's relevant in today's society, and how society needs to take a look and and we'll benefit from learning this letter and learning that we won't have to change this. We got to change this. Blacks. We gotta get this together. You know like I said, push that like and that subscribe button. For more and better content. Paid the Cost Podcast. Teflon and Too Smooth. We out.